You slowly open your eyes, and the first thing you see is an old rusty can gently swaying under the pale glow of dawn. The sky, tinged with orange, reveals blurry shapes. Soldiers sitting in a circle around an almost extinguished fire. You feel cold, a deep cold that rises from the damp earth and climbs up your back, contrasting with the timid warmth of the dying embers. A peculiar smell invades your nostrils. It's not unpleasant, but it's certainly not the kind of aroma that would lure you out of bed in the morning. The can finally stops in front of you, held by firm hands, calloused by war. You don't have much choice. You accept. The metal is still hot, but the food inside is, at best, lukewarm. It's some kind of stew. Or rather, something that vaguely resembles a stew. Meat, maybe potatoes. A few carrots float timidly in a thick broth of suspicious color. You notice there's no spoon. You should already be used to eating like this, straight from the can, like a stray cat that has learned not to complain. You bring the food to your mouth and immediately understand why the soldiers around you have that tired and distant expression. The texture is strange, gritty, a bit like sand mixed with vegetables. The taste is acceptable, though far from anything you'd call good. But there's something familiar there too, a sort of nostalgia seasoned with resignation. Probably, you think, this is the exact flavor of survival. The soldier to your left offers you a piece of something hard, wrapped in stained paper. Chocolate, or at least, something that resembles chocolate. You accept with an uncertain smile. Legend has it that these chocolates were designed to withstand extreme temperatures, endless marches, and the critical gaze of nervous sergeants. Some even say they had magical properties, capable of restoring strength, healing emotional wounds, and, in exaggerated cases, even stopping bullets. Of course, you seriously doubt that, but who are you to argue with a military legend? You chew slowly, hoping for a sweet taste that never comes. The chocolate feels like wet sand, and maybe it is. Someone chuckles softly, as if reading your thoughts, and you look up to see soldiers exchanging knowing glances. Maybe we'll never know if any soldier actually liked these rations, or just pretended to out of patriotism. In any case, you swallow the chocolate with the bitter certainty that war is made of small sacrifices. This one perhaps among the smallest. The soldiers slowly disperse, some dozing off while sitting. Others keep chewing mechanically, eyes fixed on nothing. The sun rises slowly in the sky, and you think of the distant comfort of your home. The meals you never appreciated, the hot breakfasts hurriedly prepared that you didn't even bother to savor. It's curious how small things become enormous in difficult times. You find yourself wondering if you could adapt to a daily life where hot coffee is nothing but a distant memory. It's not easy to imagine. Luckily, you don't really have to experience this. You just need to close your eyes and dive into this story as you slowly slip into the comfort of sleep. Maybe tomorrow you'll wake up valuing the small pleasures in life a bit more. Maybe you'll even want to share your reflections in the comments after all. What else is there to do while sleep doesn't come? Who knows, maybe you'll even decide to come back tomorrow to find out what a soldier had for breakfast on the battlefield. As you gently slide into sleep, cradled by the distant memory of chocolate that tasted like sand and undercooked potatoes, allow yourself to imagine what it was like to live, even if for a brief moment, with the palate of a World War II soldier. The morning advances lazily, and you notice the sky has brightened with an almost sarcastic slowness, as if it too were resisting the inevitable call of the day. The weak light reveals a scene that oscillates between melancholic and comical. Soldiers yawning as if it were an endless Monday at the office. Faces marked by a short and uncomfortable night. You feel like one of them now, almost as if you had slept poorly too, although luckily you're merely following this experience safely, comfortably distant in time. A muffled noise catches your attention. It's the sound of packages being opened, mixed with grumpy muttering. Breakfast, it seems, is served. A metal package, is placed in front of you with a soft, metallic clink, followed by a nearly comical expression of solidarity from the one who delivered it. You eye the object suspiciously and feel a slight shiver. Someone mutters dryly that the worst part isn't breakfast. But what comes after, it's something you'd rather not imagine just yet. You carefully open the can, and a faint steam escapes, revealing a suspiciously sweet aroma, though with an acidic note that's hard to identify. Eggs, maybe. Bacon, most likely. The problem is, nothing looks quite like it should. You stick an improvised spoon, which actually seems to be part of a recycled can end, to the contents, stirring a substance that could easily be mistaken for wet cement. The first spoonful goes to your mouth with dramatic hesitation, worthy of a slow-motion film. Your palate reacts with surprise at encountering a confusing mix of salty, bitter, and strangely sweet flavors. This can't be healthy, you think, chewing slowly, trying not to dwell too much on the texture, somewhere between lumpy porridge and a failed omelet. Then, someone offers you a metal cup filled with dark liquid, whose aroma is unmistakable. Coffee. You smile with relief, thinking at least this couldn't go wrong. But before the first sip, someone beside you, with a mischievous smile, warns that this coffee would either make anyone fall back asleep immediately, or have the opposite effect. Nobody knows for sure. Indeed, there's still a rather heated academic debate about who first invented this instant coffee that apparently was capable of being both undrinkable and comforting. Americans say it was them. The British swear it was their eccentric scientists. Perhaps the truth is forever lost among trenches, national pride, and exaggerated patriotism. You take the first sip and immediately wish you hadn't. The taste is something between liquid charcoal and wet earth. It's not exactly bad. Well, it is, but it's also not the worst it could be. At least you feel a pleasant warmth spreading inside, fighting off the morning chill and bringing an illusory sense of comfort. After all, that's what wartime breakfast is about, a comforting illusion, disguised as nutrition, just enough to keep soldiers on their feet, even if temporarily traumatized in taste. Around you, some soldiers quickly finish their meal, while others joke about the questionable taste and lack of options. There's a peculiar camaraderie here, forged in the shared dissatisfaction with military meals. A brotherhood built upon what isn't exactly tasty, but certainly gets the job done. You begin to wonder if you'd be able to endure long feeding like this, if you could keep your spirits up, faced with meals that seem to test you constantly. Fortunately, that's not a question you need to answer right now. All you need to do is gently follow this story, letting the unlikely scene of breakfast in the trenches become just a strange dream, a distant sensory experience that might make you appreciate even more the simple aroma of fresh coffee when you wake up tomorrow. As your mind slowly slides into the comfort of sleep, you allow yourself to think, even briefly, about the luck of living in times when food can actually have flavor, about the simple but often overlooked privilege of being able to complain when something doesn't quite suit your taste. If you're curious about how the metallic taste of aluminum cans could completely alter the flavor of food, don't worry. I'll tell you everything in detail. Stay tuned. The day goes on. You walk with the platoon, and the landscape always seems the same: mud, gravel, and that eternally overcast sky that seems to conspire against any attempt at good humor. The sun barely appears, as if it too were lazy to fulfill its role. Everything has a grayish tone, including your appetite. Lunch is near, or what passes for lunch, in this parallel universe where utensils are a luxury. Seasoning is a distant rumor, and culinary expectations died in the first week of war. The group stops. Someone points to a pile of identical boxes with enigmatic markings and faded letters. You approach as if entering a modern art exhibit with curiosity, distrust, and the certainty that you won't understand a thing. You receive one of these boxes, heavy, cold, expressionless. Inside, the usual: a set of cans, sealed packets, and a smell of wet cardboard that seems to have been aged for decades in secret basements. You open the main one and come face to face with the day's main villain, canned meat. But not just any meat. It's a type of meat that shreds on its own, even without being cooked. That sticks to the spoon and, at times, to the spirit. You try to ignore the metallic taste. It's impossible. It invades everything without asking permission. A persistent note of iron, aluminum, and resignation. And now you understand. It's not just the contents that taste like a can, it's the can that permeates everything. Like a culinary ghost. Aluminum, the logistical hero of the war, also became the #1 enemy of sensitive palates. Some scholars, with all scientific care, still debate whether there was large-scale intoxication caused by these metal containers. There is no consensus. What there is a frightening number of letters complaining that everything tasted like an old key. You look around. No one seems to care anymore. Eating has become an automatic gesture. The important thing is to ingest some calories, any at all. There's a kind of raw wisdom in that. A pragmatism that dispenses with pleasure and embraces necessity. You think about how many times you've rejected food for being not in the mood, and feel a slight but insistent pang of shame. In the middle of the meal, someone pulls a small packet of biscuits from their pocket. It snaps open. A dry, almost elegant sound. The biscuit itself looks more like a construction tool than food. You accept a piece, curious. The flavor isn't bad, but the finish is metallic. Of course, always the taste of aluminum. Maybe it's impossible to escape it. And, in a way, this constant taste works as a reminder. You're at war, and wars aren't seasoned with fine herbs. Curiously, there are soldiers who say they prefer this taste. Reminds me of home, says one half laughing. You don't know if he's joking or if his idea of home also included metal furniture and bunker food. Someone mentions that the British tried using paper linings between the food and the can to avoid that flavor. But the paper ended up becoming part of the meal. Extra fiber, they say, with a crooked smile. And then, in an unlikely gesture of generosity, someone shares a piece of dried apple. The fruit, hard as stone, tastes like nostalgia and sand. You chew slowly, appreciating the effort more than the flavor, as if that piece of apple were the last reminder of what it means to eat for pleasure. The afternoon goes on, and the taste of metal remains, stuck to your tongue, your memory, your teeth. It's a persistent reminder that, in hard times, even the simplest act, heating, becomes a battlefield. You take a deep breath. The sounds around you begin to fade. The landscape slowly dissolves as your mind sinks into the comfortable darkness of near sleep. Maybe tomorrow the menu will bring something different, or maybe just a biscuit that breaks fewer teeth. You crouch in a dry corner, as dry as one can find in this sea of mud they call a camp. The ground smells of wet earth, and things better left unquestioned. There's silence, but not the comforting silence of lazy mornings. It's a dense silence, made of exhaustion and empty stomachs. Someone hands you lunch. A small box of thick paper, sealed with beige tape that snaps when pulled. You open it like someone uncovering an ancient secret, and the contents seem to have been packed with a mix of haste and disdain. A packet of processed meat, a sachet of thick brick-colored sauce, and a salty cracker that threatens to shatter at the slightest touch. No utensils, no fire. It's time for lunch cold. You remove the meat from its packaging. It lands in your palm with a wet thud, slipping like an old bar of soap. It doesn't look appetizing, and it isn't warm. In fact, it's nearly cold, an unpleasant sensation that cuts straight to the bone. You risk a bite, and the meat resists. It's fibrous, elastic. The flavor, a combination of salt, dust, and something that resembles wet leather. The sauce tries to help, but it's like pouring ketchup on a rock. You chew with effort, like fulfilling a promise made without thinking. Beside you, a soldier jokes that the only upside of cold food is that it doesn't burn your tongue. Another swears he prefers it this way, closer to nature. No one believes him, but everyone laughs. Laughing, after all, is the only seasoning available in abundance. You watch those around you. Some eat with their hands, others improvise spoons with can lids or pieces of wood. A man with a scruffy mustache tries to warm his lunch by pressing the packet against the barrel of his weapon, still warm from the morning drill. Culinary creativity in wartime borders on genius or insanity. In 1943, they say, a French platoon tried making soup using rainwater and leftover canned sardines. Legend has it, 3 soldiers said it was almost gourmet. Of course, no one could confirm whether it was sarcasm or a rare outbreak of optimism. Ah, the sardines. You glance at a small oval container in front of you. The faded inscription product of Norway gleams faintly. You open it and are immediately hit by a smell that mixes sea air, oil, and repressed memories. The sardines are there, arranged with military discipline, bathed in oil and nostalgia. For some reason, soldiers developed a strange attachment to this food. There was something comforting in that soft texture and strong flavor. Maybe it was the only thing that really resembled food. You pick one up, hesitate, then bite. It's not bad. In fact, it's even acceptable. Better cold than the previous meat, and less metallic too. Some soldiers carry tins of these sardines like relics. There was even a documented case of someone trading a boot for 2 cans. To this day, scholars wonder if the barefoot soldier regretted the trade. No one knows exactly where the custom of eating cold in the trenches came from. Some records suggest it was quicker, others claim heat attracted flies and trouble. There are even stranger theories involving fuel conservation and local superstitions. The truth, like so many others in war, was lost somewhere between a minefield and a pile of poorly filed reports. You finish the meal by licking your thumb, more out of habit than hunger. The taste of sardine oil will stay with you for hours. The cracker, now broken, will be saved for later, or maybe traded for a cigarette, depending on the urgency. Lunch, if it can be called that, ends unceremoniously. The camp returns to its usual routine. Stay alive, stay busy, stay human despite it all. And you, with a slightly full belly and a heart slightly less desperate, realize that even a cold meal has the subtle power to keep sanity in place. As you close your eyes, you feel your body surrender to torpor. The distant sound of voices blends with the wind, and the smell of sardines begins to dissipate. Tomorrow, perhaps, you'll discover the real importance of a military biscuit that might as well be a blunt weapon. You're sitting on an empty ammo box, gazing at the dull horizon, when someone hands you a small rectangular object wrapped in stiff, yellowed paper. The gesture comes with an enigmatic look, part challenge, part warning. You accept it cautiously. The texture of the package already gives clues of what's to come. The printed name is short, direct, almost brutal. Hardtack. You've heard of it. The military biscuit. The edible legend. A piece of engineering that's survived battles, stormy seas, and the digestive systems of generations of soldiers. A food with more service time than many generals. Some say hardtacks from the First World War were still circulating in backpacks during the Second. And honestly, as you bite your Zor rather, try to you, believe it. The sound of the impact between your teeth and the biscuit is worthy of a rifle crack. The flavor is absent. A striking absence, like the emptiness of a room where someone should be. It's not that the biscuit tastes bad. It simply has no taste at all. What it does have is presence. A density that challenges your jaw, your patience, and your faith in cooking. You look around and realize no one eats hardtack as if it were food. It's more of a ritual, an exercise in endurance. There are techniques, dipping it in coffee, yes, the one that tastes like wet charcoal, smashing it with the butt of a rifle, or simply soaking it for an hour before attempting any oral approach. A veteran soldier swears he once threw a hardtack at a rat and killed it instantly. Another story tells of a lieutenant who used one to prop up a wobbly table leg, and it worked. Academics. with their metaphorical magnifying glasses and infinite patience, still debate whether more teeth were lost or more lives were saved by this multifunctional biscuit. There's no answer, only suppositions, contradictory statistics, and an informal consensus that hardtack isn't exactly foodites, a philosophical concept. You try another bite, this time with less force. It begins to yield slightly, and you detect a faint taste of aged wheat, perhaps with a hint of iron from the hands that handled it. It's dry, so dry, it absorbs saliva faster than you can produce it. Some say hardtack sucks up old memories and chews them before you can swallow. The afternoon drags on slowly, as always. The cold breeze carries the smell of machine oil and trampled herbs. You tuck the rest of the biscuit into your uniform's inner pocket. You never know when you might need an improvised tool, heavier pants, or just something hard to hold on to. As you rest your body against the trunk of a crooked tree, your thoughts wander. There's something comforting in this rough simplicity. Hardtack doesn't try to please. It's there to serve a purpose, just like all of you. There's beauty in that, in a way, and a subtle irony. In the middle of war, the least pleasurable food might just be the most enduring. You close your eyes, still feeling the biscuit fragments between your teeth. The sounds around you fade into a distant hum. Tomorrow, maybe, something sweet will come, or at least something that pretends to be sweet. You wake up to something unusual, the sound of paper being carefully torn with near-ceremonial precision. It's not a common sound in this environment where everything is done in haste, with shouting, or under bombardment. You turn and see a soldier with a disguised smile, holding something small, shiny, being unwrapped as if it were a gift. A candy, yes, candy. The word itself feels out of place here. Sugar is almost a memory, and anything promising even a hint of sweetness is received like a pocket-sized miracle. The soldier offers you a piece, a rectangular caramel, sand-colored, and with the texture of polished stone. You accept, because to refuse would be a grave offense. And also because your soul needs this, even if your teeth aren't so sure. You place it in your mouth. The texture is, as expected, resistant. Very resistant. As if the candy had made a pact never to melt. There's a timid taste of burnt sugar, hidden beneath a waxy crust with a faint aroma of aged cardboard. You chew carefully, knowing a hasty bite could be your last with a full set of teeth. Around you, other soldiers suck on the candies in contemplative silence, like monks in meditation. These caramels are included in rations as psychological reinforcement. There's really no better name for it. They don't exactly nourish, but they soothe. They fool the brain for a few moments. Some say a well-savored caramel can pull a man back from the brink. There's even a study by military psychologists during the Normandy occupation suggesting a temporary drop in reports of nervous breakdowns right after these treats were distributed. Nothing conclusive, of course. The researchers themselves doubted the results. But in wartime, scientific doubt is almost a hopeful luxury. And the candies also have their black market. Cigarettes are worth more, sure, but candy is emotional currency. A caramel can be traded for a smile, for a letter from home, for 5 minutes of conversation away from the front line. One day, a soldier traded all his for a child's drawing someone received in the mail. A crooked portrait of a 3-legged dog. The caramel vanished in seconds. The drawing stayed on the barracks wall until the end of the war. There's also the famous case of the Eternal Sweet, a caramel found intact at the bottom of a backpack in 1956. It was said to have been kept there by a veteran who swore he saved it for a really hard moment. When he finally found it, he decided not to eat it. Left it on display. No one knows if it was reverence or pure dental fear. You let the caramel rest on your tongue, letting it melt or pretend to melt at its own pace. It's a moment of peace. Brief, fragile, almost ridiculous, but real. The kind of moment war can't take away. In the distance, a plane passes. Everyone looks. Silence returns. But you're too busy savoring a simulacrum of childhood wrapped in military cellophane. And that's okay. As sleep approaches with light steps, like an officer in felt boots, you wonder what else was in those little ration boxes the government swore were complete. Maybe tomorrow you'll find out why so many soldiers confused gasoline with water. Or maybe not. Depends on where memory decides to take you. You're sweating. Not from heat. The cold still dominates the environment like a grumpy old general butt from effort. Carrying a backpack, rifle, memories, longing, everything weighs. And now, your dry throat starts screaming for relief. It's time to drink something. A simple task, if not for the disconcerting detail that water isn't always labeled as it should be. Someone hands you a canteen, cold to the touch, metallic, with a thin crust of dust that has become part of the design. You pop the lid open with a snap and take a whiff. No smell, which is already a good sign. You drink cautiously, feeling the liquid glide down your throat as if it's trying to apologize for taking so long. The water is good, but you hear a murmur from the side a story, told with the casualness of someone commenting on the weather. A soldier, weeks ago, supposedly drank gasoline, thinking it was water. The container was nearly identical. Same shape, same metal. The smell, nearly indistinguishable, they say, especially with a nose clogged by dust and homesickness. You gag slightly at the thought. Some swear this kind of mix-up was common. Records are vague, but sufficient to raise eternal suspicion. Some historians delve into the topic with a mix of morbid fascination and bureaucratic indignation. No one knows exactly how many cases there were. Notes are sparse, lost between battle reports and supply lists, perhaps because admitting soldiers confused water with fuel didn't look good in official bulletins. You hear another story, an entire platoon that used gasoline to cook soup, without realizing it was reportedly the best soup of the campaign, according to a letter. Hot, very hot, it read. Some think it's a legend. Others think it's a metaphor. You just think it explains a lot. Hydration in the field is an act of faith. Sources are limited. Filtration, improvised. Purification tablets are handed out, but they taste like soap and suspicion. You drop one into the canteen and watch the timid fizzing. You wait. You drink. The taste is acceptable if you pretend it's some experimental gym tea. Around you, there's a sort of ritual with water. Some carry their own in personalized containers. A Polish soldier keeps his wrapped in a scarf from his sister. Another uses a bottle that looks like a perfume flask. It was my mother's, he says. Now it's my lifeline. You sense that, somehow, war turns every gesture into a symbol, every object into a relic. Curiously, the instructions on how to identify potable water were always generic. Check the smell, look for particles. As if there were time for that between gunfire and bombings. Practice, as always, trumped theory. And practice sometimes meant hoping that canteen wouldn't send you to the hospital. You finish the sip, feeling slightly energized. Or maybe hallucinating. Hard to tell. The body accepts anything liquid as a gift. The mind, well, it does what it can. As you rest again against the sandbag wall, your vision starts to blur gently at the edges. The sound of water inside the canteen echoes in your head like a hollow bell. And you think, maybe tomorrow will be the day for miracle vitamins, or courage pills, or another surprise, vacuum-packed. You're sitting under a skeletal tree, its branches seemingly having survived the war out of sheer stubbornness. The air is still. Time, too. It's one of those pauses no one asked for, but every body is grateful for. You feel the day's exhaustion accumulating in your shoulders when a small glass vial is passed from hand to hand until it reaches you. Inside, a row of crayon-colored pills. Vitamins, someone says, with the conviction of someone repeating what they heard, not what they know. You look at the label, faded letters, vague promises, energy, vitality, focus. They could be selling this in a natural pharmacy in the 2000s, and no one would suspect a thing. You pick up a capsule and roll it between your fingers. It's light, opaque, and has a curious smell of old paper and mint. A soldier nearby swears that after taking one, he ran 12 kilometers without realizing it. Another says he stayed awake for 2 whole days, reading the same note from his fiancée. A third claims he saw Jesus wearing a helmet. Credibility is low, but the entertainment is high. These pills, they say, emerged as a response to growing soldier fatigue. Scientists, doctors, and probably a few advertisers were summoned to develop compounds that promised everything except flavor. They were enthusiastically dubbed metabolic reinforcers, sometimes also called courage pills. No one knew exactly what was inside. Vitamins, of course. Minerals, maybe. Caffeine, definitely. In some cases, traces of amphetamine, legacy of chemical warfare, disguised as pharmaceutical optimism. You pop one into your mouth, bitter, as expected. Your stomach accepts it with the resignation of someone who's seen worse. The sense of immediate effect is ... subjective. Maybe you feel more alert, maybe just more inclined to believe everything's fine. The power of these pills isn't in the chemistry, but in the theater. Some collect them. Little vials, labeled with dates and locations. Italy, 1944. Belgium, 1945. A captured German soldier once said he had an entire bottle reserved for the day I need to flee, running with my eyes closed. No one knows if he ever used it. Interestingly, reports on the effectiveness of these pills vary widely. Some academic sources suggest they were placebos. Others point to modest, almost imperceptible gains. A study from 1946, already with the survivors back home, showed most didn't remember taking any. In other words, the emotional memory of the courage pills is stronger than their actual effects, which, let's be honest, is quite symbolic. You lean back against the tree and feel your eyelids grow heavy. The mind seems slightly lighter. The body still hurts, but it hurts with less urgency. The empty promises of the vitamins may have worked after a lure. Maybe you were just seduced by the suggestive power of a tasteless capsule. As the sound around you dims, as if someone turned down the world's volume, you think, tomorrow, maybe you'll get to eat something hot, or at least try. Because hot food, in wartime, is more dream than routine. You wake up to an unusual smell, something that resembles real food. Hot. And for a brief second, your brain doesn't know whether to be excited or suspicious. In times of war, the aroma of a hot meal is almost a provocation, like seeing a grand piano abandoned in the middle of the desert. You get up, eyes half closed, and walk toward where the smell is strongest. There's a group gathered around a small improvised stove contraption, made of stacked cans, a cloth wick, and some recycled oil. A soldier tends to the fire with almost paternal care, stirring a dented pot with a piece of wood that once served as the handle for something more useful. Soup today, he announces, as if it were Christmas. Everyone smiles, including you. The soup is far from a feast. It's a thin broth with unidentifiable bits of vegetables, something that resembles pasta, and would you believe it, a fragment of meat that might actually be meat. The heat, however, makes all the difference. You bring the first spoonful to your mouth and feel the hot liquid course through your body like a soft electric current. It's comforting. It's human. But it's not every day meals can be heated. Heat attracts flies, unwanted attention, and consumes time, a scarce currency on the battlefield. That's why hot meals are rare, almost liturgical moments, and when they happen, they become silent celebrations. For soldiers, finding ways to heat food was almost a hobby. Some used tank engine covers to warm cans. Others improvised furnaces with hot stones. There are reports of German soldiers who created a portable oven using bicycle parts. The Americans even distributed small stoves powered by solid alcohol, though there was the subtle detail that the fuel was highly flammable and, accidents were frequent. Which army did best in this heat saga? The answer is a mix of patriotism and legend. The British swear their stoves were more practical. The Americans bet on the efficiency of recycled fuel cans. The Soviets, they simply ate quickly and silently, hot or not. The soup is gone quickly. Some scrape the bottom of the pot, others lick their spoons. You find yourself smiling. Not because of the taste, there's still a flavor of cardboard with salt, but because of the fleeting sense of normalcy. Eating something hot in the middle of war is like hearing music in the midst of chaos, an improbable luxury. A reminder that civilization still exists, even if canned. You step away from the group, belly warm and spirit slightly lighter. You sit near a charred tree, rest your head, and close your eyes. The soup's warmth still dances inside you, like a thread of humanity resisting the cold wind of military logic. Maybe tomorrow the meal will come from the forest. Maybe, out of necessity, someone will have to eat what the earth offers, or what it hides. You are deep in the woods, far from cans, sealed packages, and lukewarm soups that nearly became legend. Around you, tall trees, damp leaves, and that indefinable scent of nature trampled by sweaty boots. The camp was hastily improvised. No supplies, no plans, with only one certainty. Either you find something to eat, or you eat whatever's within reach literally. This is where the line between civilization and survival begins to blur. A soldier with eyes that have seen too much points excitedly to a bush. "You can eat this," he says. You examine the small, unassuming leaves. He chews one and smiles. You hesitate, then chew too. The taste is bitter, but tolerable, like tea forgotten in a cup. Today's meal will be improvised with wild plants, roots, and for the braver ones, insects. It's an old, ancestral practice. Military manuals speak of it as if it were a secret art. But the truth is, out here in the forest, knowledge comes down to well-intentioned guesses and digestive luck. There's tension in the air. No one wants to be the first to try something that might cause hallucinations or an emergency visit to the medical squad who, it should be noted, are also improvising. Hunger, however, is an excellent seasoning for fear. Soon, small groups scatter, collecting anything that looks even remotely edible. Leaves with friendly shapes, fruits with less threatening colors, roots that, when boiled, resemble potatoes and regret, and mushrooms. Always mushrooms. You hold a small white mushroom, delicate, even beautiful. A soldier eyes it warily. "Too pretty to be safe," he says. You decide to let it go. Days later, you hear a story about a group from another regiment that made mushroom soup and spent hours laughing at trees and trying to talk to a rock. The academic debate remains. Were they hallucinogenic mushrooms, or just a spontaneous reaction to stress and chronic hunger? At the improvised dinner, there's a communal dish made of mashed leaves, a bit of moss, and roots boiled in puddle water filtered through hope. The taste is ... surprising. Not good, of course, but better than expected. Maybe it's the brain in emergency mode. Maybe it's just relief. You eat slowly, savoring each bite, like part of a pagan ritual to please your stomach. There's a kind of silent pride on the soldiers' faces. Eating from the earth, even with a taste of dirt, brings a strange sense of control. As if, for a few moments, they had won the war on hunger with their own dirty hands. You lie down among the leaves, looking at the sky hidden by branches. The body is tired, the mind lighter. The forest murmurs around you. And you, still with the taste of root in your mouth, fall asleep with a comforting thought. At least you didn't have to eat the frog. Everyone spent the whole day calling Plan B. Tomorrow, maybe, you'll find out why canned food became iconic even, with the taste of plastic and poorly processed memories. You return to camp, and like a triumphant return to civilization, my civilization 1 means a cluster of tents, stove smoke and socks hanging on improvised lines. Someone hands you a can. Small square wrapped in a blue label with white letters. That unmistakable name. Short, direct, almost affectionate. Spam. You hold the can with both hands, as if it were a relic. And in a way, it is. Spam is the kind of food that transcended its purpose. It started as emergency rations, became a symbol of war, then a gastronomic joke, and later a cultural icon. Some love it, some hate it, but no one is indifferent. Opening a can of Spam is a multi-sensory experience. First, the metal ring twists with a firm snap. Then comes the sticky sound of the vacuum breaking. Finally, the sight. A block of pressed meat, pink shiny, covered in a gelatinous liquid you can't and probably shouldn't identify. You slice off a piece with your knife for what's left of it. Bring it to your mouth. The taste is incredibly familiar. Salty, meaty, somewhat greasy, but inexplicably comforting. Spam has the strange gift of adaptability. It can be eaten raw, fried, grilled, mixed with rice, with bread, with practically anything, and it always seems to work. Like that versatile friend you'd never invite to dinner, but who always saves the group when everything goes wrong. During the war, Spam was a constant presence in American soldiers' mess kitchen by osmosis. It reached the British, Soviets, South Koreans, and even the stomachs of captured enemies. It was lightweight, durable, easy to transport, and packed with enough sodium to embalm the soul. The problem was, it was too constant, and constancy, in wartime, is rarely a good thing. Many soldiers developed an aversion. There are reports of men who swore never to eat Spam again. One of them, it's said, tattooed the words "no Spam" on his arm upon returning home. But the most curious thing is what came afterward. After the war, Spam became a symbol of survival, of nostalgia, of a kind of rugged masculinity. In countries like South Korea, it became a delicacy. In Hawaii, a tradition. In the UK, pub food. To this day there are parties, museums, t-shirts. A can of Spam is almost an edible historical document. And of course, scholars still debate what exactly made it so popular. Was it the marketing, the practicality, or simply the lack of alternatives? We may never know. Maybe we don't want to know. Because Spam works best as a mystery. Like that old song you swear you hate, but sing all the way through when no one's watching. You finish your portion and still feel the salt vibrating on your tongue. Around you, some soldiers keep the empty cans not to throw away, but to use as pans, cups, ashtrays, or art. Once, a Polish platoon made a radio using 2 Spam cans and a bit of wire. The story became legend. You lie down with a slightly stuffed belly and, curiously, a peaceful spirit. Spam doesn't judge. Spam simply exists. And in hard times that's already a lot. Maybe tomorrow will be a day for poetry. The kind born between sardines and sonnets, in trenches full of mud and irony. You're sitting at the edge of a trench, feet dangling over the dry mud. The sky is streaked with dark orange, that shade that only appears on days that can't decide whether to end or carry on. Beside you, a battered notebook is passed from hand to hand. When it reaches you, you realize it's not a diary, nor a military log. It's something far rarer in this setting. A book of poems, handwritten, short, poorly rhymed, but incredibly sincere. Soldiers write, they always have. Between battles, between rations, between days that never end. And sometimes, they write about food, or the lack of it, or what they imagine a civilized dinner could be, if they still knew what that meant. You read softly, "Cold soup, my faithful bride, your presence is loyal, your flavor denied." Someone chuckles in the background. Another nods solemnly. The poems are simple, sarcastic, sad, and sweet, like those caramels that never melt. They speak of sardines, whispering promises of bread that breaks teeth, of coffee that defies the laws of chemistry. One soldier wrote an entire sonnet dedicated to the act of opening a biscuit package without destroying its contents. Another penned haikus about canned beans. Creativity here is as resilient as the hardtack itself. These nighttime writing sessions have become involuntary rituals. Quiet gatherings around a weak lantern, with someone reciting an ode to burnt rice, while the rest of the group chews in silence. It's not theater, it's therapy, and sometimes it's art. Some say trench literature should be considered its own genre, a field between war chronicle and lyrical self-help. But academics don't know what to do with it. There's uncertainty. It doesn't fit neatly into categories. It's too personal, too mundane, too true. You keep reading. Oh, beet sugar, pink illusion. You remind me of Christmas, just without the good portion. The page is yellowed. The handwriting, shaky. But there's more soul here than in any official dispatch. In this context, food becomes metaphor. Longing, complaint, escape. When you can't cook, you cook with words. A soldier beside you takes the notebook back and writes another verse with the tip of a pencil chewed down to halfway. He doesn't say what he wrote, just smiles faintly. You understand. Sometimes, the poem isn't for others. It's just a quiet reminder that, despite everything, there's still something in you that wants to turn rust-flavored beans into rhyme. Night falls. The group disperses. You carry in your memory that last clumsy line, that awkward rhyme, that somehow warmed your stomach more than any meal that day. Maybe tomorrow you'll discover how chocolate becomes letters, cigarettes become currency, and hunger becomes economy. You wake up to the sound of whispered voices, almost conspiratorial. A small group of soldiers is gathered around an open backpack. You approach slowly and quickly understand. This isn't just a trade, it's a market. A silent bazaar of improbable items, where the currency isn't money, it's food. A cigarette for a tea sachet. 2 caramels for a can of sardines. A hard biscuit for a whole free sock. The math is unstable, sensitive to mood and need. Here, a packet of crackers can be worth more than a badge. Chocolate, pure gold, coffee. Well, with coffee you could negotiate even forgiveness. You witness a particularly bold transaction. A French soldier offers his last vitamin pill in exchange for a steel spoon. The other hesitates, then agrees. The spoon, after all, is part of dignity. Eating with your hands, day after day, wears down the soul. And the vitamin, well, no one knows if it really works anyway. The stories are many. An American traded his entire ration for a love letter scented with perfume. A Russian swapped a piece of moldy bread for a dog's photograph. A Poland, this story feels like legends supposedly traded 5 chocolate bars for a single dry sock. To this day, no one knows if it was foolishness or romance. The black market of military food wasn't officially acknowledged, but everyone knew it existed. In every army, it was part of the system, like trenches or longing. A floating economy fueled by hunger, boredom, and the constant search for comfort. And like any economy, there was inflation, speculation, and scams. You watch a soldier trying to sell a piece of spam disguised as fresh meat. Another offers water in a perfume bottle. Eyes are sharp, hands quick. It's a game that demands memory, cunning, and a stomach of steel. Some historians have ventured to study this parallel economy. They collected stories, analyzed journals, compared letters. They reached cautious conclusions. The system existed, it was functional, and probably preserved more sanity than anyone realized. But the question lingers. What was its real impact? Hard to measure. Easier to accept that where there are humans, there is barter. And where there is hunger, there is creativity. You walk away from the group with a small treasure in your pocket. A mint candy, wrapped in shiny paper. You don't remember what you gave in exchange. Maybe a button, maybe a promise. But now it's there, yours. And as you close your eyes, with the imagined taste of mint still on your tongue, you wonder what else could be invented from so little. Maybe a party, maybe an entire banquet, made of memories and illusions. You smell it before anything else. It's sweet, warm maybe, just more intense than the usually flavorless air of the trenches. There are no stoves, no open cans, but there is laughter, rare, sincere, a little hoarse. As you approach, you understand. It's a party, improvised, clumsy, half silent, but still, a party. In the absence of ingredients, imagination is used. And today's menu is a banquet built on words. One of the soldiers recites it with the pomp of a retired French mater, day starter, hope salad with crushed biscuit croutons. Main course, winged horse filleted with invisible mushroom sauce. Dessert, ration bee mousse with eternal caramel reduction. Everyone applauds, some burst into laughter. One or two even pretend to jot down the recipe. You smile. Not because it's funny, but because you know how much it matters. These small victories, these imaginary feasts, are invisible shields against the brutality of the days. A Polish soldier appears with a tray made from an ammo box lid. On it, a piece of dry bread decorated with green leaves, herbs foraged earlier. Or maybe just washed grass. In the center, a biscuit carefully balanced as if it were foie gras. The presentation, at least, is impeccable. Parties like this aren't frequent, but they're remembered with reverence. They happen after victorious battles, unlikely reunions, letters received. They don't involve abundance, they involve collective effort to pretend, for one night, that everything is okay. Some decorate tent corners with candy wrappers. Some write full menus, and hang them as if they were art. You hear someone reading a letter sent from home. The tone is calm, almost serene. The letter describes the smell of baking bread, the sound of silverware at the table, the laughter of children. No one interrupts, even those pretending not to listen. And for a few minutes you see in their eyes, not soldiers, but sons, fathers, brothers. People trying to remember they have a life outside of here. These parties, say the experts, were important for morale. But official records are scarce. No one documented imaginary dinners. They were too private, too fragile, and perhaps too absurd to fit in military reports. But there are letters. Many letters. Some describe fictitious recipes in such detail they resemble culinary manuals. Others speak of toasts made with water and promises of reunion. One historian called it the gastronomy of longing. Another simply wrote, they pretended to eat well to remember they still knew how to live. You chew your decorated biscuit as if it were black truffle. You close your eyes. The taste, suddenly, doesn't matter. What matters is the pause. The moment of pretending you still know how to celebrate. And maybe, tomorrow, you'll say goodbye to this journey through the flavors of war with one last sip of memory. A slow closing, like a fade out, like a sigh. Tonight's silence is different. It doesn't weigh, it doesn't bother. It spreads slowly, like a warm blanket over a tired body. The stars finally decide to show themselves, timidly, between patches of cloud. You're lying on a folded coat, your head resting on something pillow-like. But it's just a backpack that smells of damp clothes and leaves. Around you, no one speaks. Not for lack of things to say, but because there are moments only silence understands. The stomach isn't growling. The body isn't complaining. Tonight, food doesn't matter. Because, after everything, you finally understand. Meals during the war were never just food. They were shelter, companionship, resilience. They were ways to remember that, despite the chaos, the mud, and the endless noise, there was still something simple and absurdly human inside each soldier. A hunger for life. You mentally revisit each strange flavor you encountered here. The dry chocolate that tasted like sugar-coated cement. The coffee brewed from doubt. The biscuit that had to be tamed with hot water, or it would break teeth like dry twigs. The hardtack. And spam, redeemed by its persistence, loved by few but always present. Like a friend you swear you hate, but miss when they're gone. You remember the candies that wouldn't melt, the chocolate traded for cigarettes, letters, promises. That piece of dehydrated apple that felt like a jewel stolen from the future. And the foraged meals, born from damp soil, fear, and necessity. You think of the poems hastily written between bites. The foodless feasts, where menus were made of memories and deliciously sad inventions. Maybe no one outside will fully understand this. Maybe there will never be definitive proof that food was, indeed, one of the most resilient forms of humanity amidst inhumanity. But you know. You feel it, and that's enough. You close your eyes. The sky feels closer. The ground, less hard. The distant sound of a spoon tapping against a mug echoes like a church bell, announcing the end of a shift or the beginning of rest. For your final fictional meal of the night, you choose whatever dish you like. Fresh bread, maybe. Or a slice of birthday cake. Or even a warm soup, served slowly, with a real spoon, in a chipped ceramic bowl like the ones from your grandmother's kitchen. You can choose. Here, in your sleep, everything tastes like what you want to remember. The camp breathes. And with it, you long sigh, a slow relief, like warm honey over your shoulders. There's no more hurry, no more fear. Just the warmth of memory and the peace of a hunger finally quieted. Sleep now, gently, like someone returning home. And if tomorrow you feel the urge, come back here. I've got a soup ready, a fresh poem, and a caramel that might melt. Someday, good night.